What is up, everybody? It is Kellen here from Start Your Systems, and welcome back to MX Bikes, where today we're going to be playing the ARL Finals Round 3 track, aka SMX Round 3 from Los Angeles, the LA Memorial Coliseum, and talking about the finals of SMX on the weekend, which there will be some spoilers in this video. We'll get to that in a minute. Firstly, just want to give a shout out, of course, to ARL for making this track and giving us the opportunity to play it and talk about it and all that stuff as well, because the MX Sim series has not been doing this stuff and got me back into bikes a little bit to play these tracks and try it out. And then those factory bikes that J-Mertz has been putting out have been awesome. And these are another set of those that we're trying out here today. I really like this gas, so decided to play it in the video. And I'll link all that in the description below, so if you're interested in any of that, be sure to try it out down there. But yes, we did return to the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum for the first time since 1998 in a AMA Supercross capacity to some degree. Yes, the X Games has had races. They've had like the Supercross gold medal matches and stuff like that in the Coliseum since then, and of course freestyle events and stuff like that. But the last time that AMA Supercross, the series, was in the Coliseum was 1998. There was also, of course, like Summercross and a couple other things like that that Steve Mathis will always love to tell you about that happened after that. But yeah, that 1998 Supercross was the last time that we were really here. And then on the weekend, there was the SuperMotocross World Championship Finals at LA. And I got to go. Worked in the media, of course, for RacerXOnline.com. So if you want to check out some of the stuff that I've been doing over there, be sure to check that out. But man, it was such a cool experience to be back at the Coliseum again and experience it, because I went to that 1998 Los Angeles Supercross. It was the first race I ever went to as a little young buck, 4 years old, went to that race, and very vividly remember a lot about that race, a lot about that night. Some funny stories for sure of me being there, but I digress about that. Like, I just do remember what it was like back then, and then coming to the Coliseum again. They've done a lot of renovations to it to get ready for the Olympics in 2028, and it just... honestly, it felt like a pretty good vibe. It seemed like a lot of the crowd that was there was excited about it. It wasn't like a packed house, but to fill that stadium, you have to pack a lot of seats. It's 78,000, I think, capacity just in the seats alone, and that's without like standing room seats and stuff like that. So it's a massive place. And Supercross, I mean, they're lucky to get 40,000 people at most Supercross events. Seemed like about that-ish, maybe, I would say, for this one. So I would say on TV, you know, some people said, oh, it looked a little empty. I could see why it would aesthetically maybe look like that on TV, but in the stadium, it definitely felt full. The crowd was into it, and definitely very cool. If you didn't watch the race, I am going to spoil it right now, so apologies in advance for that. But yeah, Jet Lawrence and Hayden Deegan, it was maybe the most media-friendly night of racing ever. The Lawrence brothers and the Deegan family obviously are a massive, I guess, commodity for the sport right now, and they both had their own kind of celebration on the night. Deegan wins the 250 SMX championship as a rookie. Incredible journey to get there. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then Jet Lawrence comes through and wins the 450 SMX championship. And yeah, kind of completes a ridiculous rookie 450 campaign thus far. He still hasn't even made his Supercross debut on a 450 yet, and it already feels like he's arguably the class of the field on a 450. At least without Eli Tomac in the class, he seems to be. So, yeah, it's honestly incredible what Jet has already accomplished, and he did it again. Now, if you didn't watch the race, basically what happened was it was more or less a winner-take-all between him and Chase Sexton. Ken Roxon needed Jet Lawrence to finish between he and Sexton to win the championship based on the way that the points were as a triple-point night. So basically a normal overall score would get you triple points, so a 25 would get you 75 suddenly, and so on and so forth, and definitely made the math of it kind of gnarly about who could win or what was going to happen. And it was also $1 million on the line to win the SMX championship. And I've also seen some people say, oh, it's $1 million, but it goes to the teams. And yes, theoretically speaking, it is written in there that the teams will get the $1 million. But I'm pretty sure, based on what I've heard and talked to with some people, just about everybody is going to just put that prize money immediately to the riders, as it was basically what it was designed to do, right, is to give the riders a bunch of money. And the riders that signed up basically for themselves, they are a team. So the Jerry Robbins, more or less the Thai master pools and stuff like that, they're the ones that are going to just straight up get the cash to themselves because they signed up as themselves. So yeah, like I think that there's a chance maybe that we see like 1 or 2 shady weird things happen where the prize money, because it goes to the teams keep it. But I think almost all of it will be the riders actually getting the prize money. And for like a Thai master pool, he got $75,000 for finishing 10th overall in this championship, so that's pretty darn cool. But like I said, Jet Lawrence does get it done. He won the first moto, and he did so by doing a ridiculous quad on-off line through the section that I just went through right there. It's a little bit different in this game because they built it off of the blueprint versus what was ending up to be used in real life. And real life was actually different as well. It's like a tire tap 3 on-off on Friday. And then a couple guys went down really hard, Seth Hammaker, Parker Ross, so they changed it up and made it a 3 singles into a table and then another single kind of option. And only a handful of 450 guys were able to uncork the quad on-off line, and Jet was the first to do it in qualifying, then pulled it out in the first moto and was pretty much the only one doing it in the first moto. Passed 3 or 4 guys doing it, including Ken Roczen for the lead, and took off with the win there. So then it set it up for, well, Chase has to beat Jet, and not only has to beat him, he has to get Kenny between Jet as well, because Chase finished 3rd in the first moto, Roczen finished 2nd, and it's based on overall position for the night to get the total score. So Chase, to win the night and then win the championship, would need to go 3-1, while Jet would go 1-3. And in the second moto, Chase hole shots. Jet is in 2nd, Roczen is in 3rd after a little bit. It kind of took him maybe a lap or 2 to get there. And then the chase was on, more or less, and Chase was getting away at the front of the field. Roczen was pressuring Jet for 2nd, and I feel like Jet looked a little bit off comparatively to what he looked like in the first moto. I mean, everyone was nailing the quad, so I think it kind of came around anyway for everybody else. But yeah, Jet just didn't kind of look the same way that he did in the first moto. Roczen was on him, pushing him, pressuring him, and then Chase grenades himself out of the lead. And man, like, I know people make fun of Chase for all the crashes and stuff like that, but genuinely, it sucks to see him fall all the time. Like, it really does. He's such a talented dude, and like the fact that he crashes all the time in these really weird ways is just like such a bummer, because he would have so many more wins and probably another championship or 2 if he didn't crash the way that he has. So I know people are sick of it, and it's just Chase's MO at this point, but that was also the last time we saw him on a Honda. He is going to Red Bull KTM next year. I'm pretty sure we're going to hear that announcement within the next week or 2 about going to Red Bull KTM for him. That is basically why he's not on the Motocross of Nations team, because he is switching teams, and the Motocross of Nations are, of course, in 2 weeks. So Sexton crashes off of this sand jump. Really just kind of was flowing, I think, a little bit too much with the way that he was arcing the corner and then laying the bike over off of that rutted face. And I think he dragged foot and foot peg, basically, and then it just pitched him over the bars, and he went down pretty hard. I heard some people saying, like, oh, is he okay? And yeah, the official update from Honda was just some bruising. They, I guess, got x-rays at Alpine Stars, and those came back negative. And I think it was like shoulder related, but I don't think it was anything that was detrimental to get him started on the KTM and everything like that. But him walking out of the stadium with his Honda being pushed off, and that's the last time we'll see him on a Honda, is very indicative, in my opinion, of basically where Chase was at with the Honda. I think he felt like he just couldn't quite make it work to do exactly what he wanted to do. Is a KTM going to do that? I don't know, but I think he feels that he just couldn't quite get the Honda to basically do exactly what he wanted it to do. And in turn, Jet Lawrence has found a setup and settings that work in basically every facet on the Honda already as a rookie. And also Honda was going to start pouring a lot of their attention and effort into Jet. Of course, Hunter Lawrence is going to be moving to the 450 class next year as well. So Chase was not necessarily on like the outs anyway. I think Honda would have liked to retain him, but I think the writing was on the wall that the future with Honda is Jet and Hunter Lawrence, and Jay Sexton, I guess, just didn't really want to stick around to see it transpire that way. So he walked out of the stadium the last time we'll see him on a Honda, and then it turned into Jet versus Kenny, and Roczen was all over Jet for like 15 minutes of the main event. It was a second and a half or less basically that entire time. And then Roczen came up on Josh Hill, and he said it was basically his fault. in the sand section, he was taking the same line every lap. Josh chose to go to that line to try to let Kenny go by, and Roczen just followed him in. And obviously that slows him down a ton when someone slows down to try to let you by because they think you're not in the line with you, and suddenly you are in the line. So yeah, it sucks that it transpired that way, but definitely Hill holding him up kind of spoiled the rest of the show. Roczen tried to make a last-ditch effort on Jet, but it didn't happen, and Jet Lawrence walks away with back-to-back moto wins to finish out the campaign and the 2023 SMX World Championship, as they're calling it. I'll just call it SMX because to me, I think World is a bit of a silly moniker. But yeah, I mean, I think it kind of went, I guess, as we expected it to a little bit based on what we saw in Nationals. Ken Roczen was the only person, aside from Chase Sexton, I think that really gave Jet any sort of troubles outdoors. And Sexton never even led laps outdoors, which is kind of ridiculous. I think Sexton looked a lot more like we expected him to going into Charlotte. Chicago was a little bit of an off race. And then honestly, the first moto at LA was odd to me. I thought he'd be better than that. And then the second moto, he was showing that, yeah, that's what he can do. And then he crashed, and that's the end of that. But yeah, I mean, Jet has had just unbelievable success on a 450 already. He has won every single moto except for 3 now that he's raced on a 450. I guess 4 because of Motocross of Nations. And now he rolls into the Motocross of Nations with 2 championships and a lot of momentum and a potential Australian team that could win this whole damn thing as long as things go their way. So yeah, massive kudos to Jet. And like I said, it was pretty cool to see how the way it did go down to the end. Roczen did make it close. It wasn't just a complete runaway. I think it was overall a pretty good 450 championship. I think it could have been a lot more of a walk home for even Chase if he had figured it out at Chicago. Like, he could have came into the final round with a pretty big upper hand and not needed to win, but he did need to win, and that's what we see happen with Chase when he needs to win. So bit of a shame there. Had a couple people ask me about Justin Barcia. He obviously went down really, really hard in the first moto. No official update from the team. I tried to walk down there after the night show was over. Of course, we have to go to the press conference like right away. So I was stuck there for a little bit, and then I walked over to Gas, and they were packed up and gone. So yeah, no official word yet on his condition. He was backboarded off the track. To me, it looked a little bit precautionary based on the way that he was complaining about like his shoulder/neck area, and I think they just kind of backboard. They had the red flag out too, so if they have the time and they can take the precaution to be a little bit safer with his head and neck area, I think they try to do that. But I don't, from what I've seen so far and a couple people I've talked to, I don't think it's going to be like super, super serious, and there might even be an update out by the time I post this video. But I think based on what I saw, it looked like dislocated shoulder and maybe collarbone fracture or perhaps some, ligament damage or something like that. But I don't expect it to be much more than that. Maybe a concussion, I guess, but hopefully he is A-okay. Jason Anderson pulled out of the final moto, but that was just because his bike was mangled. He crashed out of the tunnel jump on the 4th lap or so in the second moto. Bike was pretty torn up, so he just went back to the pits. And then Aaron Plessinger also crashed really hard in the first moto. Bike was all torn up, went back to the pits, and then came back and finished 6th in the second moto. And the report from him was that he is also A-okay, nothing really wrong, just the bike was torn up. So that's kind of the status update on those guys. And then Jet Lawrence walks away with $1 million. Let's talk about 250 class, though, because I don't want this video to be unbelievably long. Hayden Deegan wins that one. It's his first professional title. It is not necessarily classified as one of like the main titles. I actually clarified with the AMA yesterday, which will be 2 days ago now for you guys, that this is not even classified as a national championship, which means that even though Deegan won this title, he does not get to select a single digit, which is only available to riders that win a national title, aka 450MX, 250MX, or Monster Energy Supercross, because Monster Energy Supercross is a complete national title. 250 Supercross is a regional title, so they don't get the distinguished moniker to choose a single digit. Deegan, I think, is choosing 38. I talked to him at Washougal and asked him about it, and he said that most likely he is going to go with 38. I think that the most likely was if he happened to win the motocross title, maybe he would select like 8 or something like that, but he did not win the motocross title. And even though he won this, he can't pick a single digit, so he'll be number 38 next year. But he does win this title, and it was It was very emotional. He went 5-2 on the night. He needed to beat Joe Shimoda in the second moto to win it, and he did. And he had the help of Levi Kitchen in front of him and Justin Cooper behind him. So basically just like teammates to kind of help block, but I don't think it really would have mattered that much. Like, I think that, you know, Cooper was in his own race behind him. If Shimoda got by him, I don't think Cooper would have necessarily like punted Shimoda just to help Deegan win. Maybe he would have. I don't know how Cooper feels about him as a teammate, but it seems like those guys are pretty all for themselves, and it's the way it was going to be. Shimoda was really, really good in the first moto, came from really far back to even get to Deegan, kind of punted him out of the way, and I want to talk about that in a minute. But then the second moto, Shimoda just looked a little bit off. He said that they redid like the whole track after the KTM Juniors race, and so they got a fresh racetrack, and that made it so that it was almost impossible to make up time, and he just slowly lost like a tenth or two every single lap until halfway, and then started making up time, but it was too late. So yeah, they all finished like basically exactly as they started, kind of nose to tail there, and Deegan goes second in the final moto to win the championship, and Shimoda ended up fourth, so still finished second. Now, Hunter Lawrence missed the evening, even though he came in as the championship leader. He crashed pretty hard in free practice on Friday, kind of hit a wall jump awkward, or not a wall jump, he hit a double awkwardly, went over the bars, and then the bike ran over his like head neck area as he was crashing. Pinched a nerve in his neck, actually did a little bit of some tweaking to his lower back as well, said it was really, really hard to like just walk. Was having a lot of like nerve pain going up his lower back and stuff like that. So he tried to do some free practice, was a little bit off the mark, ended up 13th, I think, in qualifying, and just elected to back out of it, and ultimately said for him it was more about his health than it was about trying to send it and win the money. So a bit unfortunate there, but the update from Alex Gilbert at Moto Online, one of my buddies over there, said, talked to Hunter Lawrence, and Lawrence says that he should be good to go for Motocross of Nations, so at least Australia is still looking good there. Now, I wanted to talk about the Shimoda-Deegan collision because Shimoda came, you know, kind of snuck attack Deegan a little bit. Deegan was trying to pass Tom Vial in the first moto, almost got him in this corner, and then I think because he was so enthralled with what Vial was doing, Shimoda kind of snuck up on him in this corner and then just went down the inside, kind of just went right to the edge of the corner, gave him a little nudge, and then Deegan got squirrely and went off the side of the track. And it was odd to me how many people were like immediately complaining about that, because a lot of the Deegan fans were the ones that obviously backed Deegan when he, you know, sent it in on Jordan Smith in a heat race earlier this year. And I don't really care. Like, whatever, they can take each other out all day long if they want. But to me, the Shimoda contact was basically no different than what those guys are doing in the heat race earlier this year. And the difference is that Shimoda was going for $500,000, whereas Jordan Smith and Hayden Deegan were trying to win a heat race. Like, I don't know. To me, that was even more of an acceptable situation to give him the old punteroni off a corner when there's $500,000 on the line, and he didn't even take him down. He just kind of hit him and pushed him out onto the start straight, and then Deegan rejoined, and the bike wasn't damaged or anything like that. So I think that was all fair and square in the end. Like, to me, I didn't really look at that as like, oh, that was aggressive or too dirty, but saw a lot of backlash online, which of course there's, you know, Deegan has a huge following, so anything he does, a lot of people are going to immediately defend. To me, I just chalk that up to good hard racing for $500,000. Like, I think that's what we're going to see a lot in these SMX playoff rounds in the future. And yeah, to me, that was fair and square. So, but anyway, it didn't matter in the end. Deegan still got it done in the second moto, and in the best post-race show that we're posting up on racetracksonline.com, Jason Wygant and myself talked to Brian Deegan, and Brian basically said that he went back to him afterwards and said, like, hey man, this isn't over. Like, you don't need to feel all down on yourself for finishing fifth in the first moto, because he was second, went backwards, and obviously the Shimoda contact happened, and he just looked better overall in the second moto. Just looked, honestly, like, looked more comfortable being in the situation that he was in the second moto. Like, the first moto, he seemed, I don't know that he got nervous or whatever, but in the first moto, it just looked like at a certain point, he was like, this is a lot going on, trying to pass Vial. Vial kind of roughed him up to get back ahead of him, and then fell back a couple seconds. Jordan Smith suddenly is catching and passing him. RJ Hampshire is suddenly catching and passing him, and then bam, there's Joe Shimoda also punting him. Like, I just think life came at him a little bit fast in that regard. And yeah, to me, I didn't really chalk it up as like anything overly weird, other than that maybe the nerves were getting to him. But the second moto, he looked really, really comfortable, really, really on top of it all. And kudos to him, man. He for 17 years old, has it much more put together than just about every other 17-year-old has in the history of this sport. Ricky Carmichael crashed his brains out a ton when he was 17. James Stewart, the same thing, like crash or win all the time. And, you know, like there's only a handful of guys that have even been that close. I guess like you could say like Ryan Villapoto went from teenager to champion like immediately. Like that's another guy that did it really, really well. But for Deegan's age and obviously the stuff that goes on around him with all the following, the vlogs, all that stuff, like he handles it really, really damn well. It's really impressive for me to see. And yeah, like I even asked him in the press conference, like, man, did you even think that this was possible when you make your pro debut, that by the end of the year you'd win the freaking SMX championship? And he said no, like he was just wanting to podium a national, and then he's suddenly battling for championships, wins this thing, and man, he is setting himself up to definitely walk into 2024 as a title favorite in the 250 class, especially with Hunter Lawrence, who confirmed that this would be his last 250 race in the USA. He is moving up to a 450 full-time, as we expected. With Chase Sexton leaving, I think the plan all along then was Hunter would move to 450 full-time. He'll join his brother, and Honda HRC will be a full rookie 450 Supercross team next year, which is going to be fun to watch between the Lawrence brothers. But yeah, Deegan gets it done, Jet gets it done, and we raced in the Coliseum again. It was, like I said, just really cool to be there. And finally, we get to the end of the championship. It was a super, super long season this year with the 31 rounds of racing. I will be going to the Motocross of Nations in a week and a half, though, so not done for me. On my way to France next week, and excited for that. Going to cover the race and then spend a week and a half or two with my family out there and just enjoy the French Riviera probably, and relax a little bit and kick back after 31 races. I think so far I've tallied, I've gone to 22 races this year. France will be 23, and I don't know that I'll be done after that. I might have to go to another thing overseas or something like that after that, but we'll see. Regardless of which, it's been a really fun year to cover, and yeah, just really, really excited to see what 2024 holds for us now that we've had such a interesting dynamic in the way that this season has turned out. So that's my thoughts and opinions from SMX in Los Angeles. If you guys have any more comments or questions that you'd like to ask, please be sure to hit me up in the comment section below. I always go back and try to read what you guys have to say. And especially if you have any more questions that maybe I didn't answer in this video from being there and talking to some people, I'm happy to do so down in the comment section. So again, thanks guys for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this one. As always, I appreciate you stopping by and watching another video here on Start Your Systems, and we look forward to seeing you guys in the next one. So long for now.